Okay, let's dive into an event that really fundamentally changed how the world thinks about technology, about culture, about, well, everything. We're talking about the Great Exhibition of 1851 in London.
And this wasn't just some big fair. You have to understand. This was the planet's very first global trade show, a huge, ambitious snapshot of the Industrial Revolution as it was really starting to accelerate.
The official name was something pretty grand, right?
Oh yeah, it was the Great Exhibition of the Works of Industry of All Nations. And that title tells you everything. The mission was to get the best manufacturing, the coolest inventions, and even raw materials from all over the world and put them in one single place.
A showcase.
A showcase, a marketplace, and a huge learning opportunity all rolled into one.
And the main person pushing this idea, the real visionary behind it, was Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband.
He was, and he had a lot of pushback at first. I mean, people were genuinely worried. They thought it was too expensive, too risky.
And that other countries would just come and steal all of Britain's industrial secrets?
Exactly. But Albert's vision was, well, it was really progressive for the time. He saw it as a path to what he called peaceful competition.
So, not a zero-sum game.
Not at all. He believed that if you put everyone's best achievements side by side, nations would be inspired to improve themselves. It would lead to more trade, more prosperity, and maybe, just maybe, less reason to go to war. It was about exchanging ideas more than just selling products.
So Albert sets this incredible ideological stage. But the stage itself, the actual building, was probably the first big shock for everyone. Let's talk about the Crystal Palace.
We have to. The building itself was a statement. I mean, it was just as revolutionary as anything it held inside.
And it was designed by Joseph Paxton, who wasn't a famous architect at the time, was he?
Not at all. His main experience was designing enormous glass greenhouses for wealthy clients. And he basically took that idea and scaled it up into a building that was nearly half a mile long.
Just to give you a sense of that scale, it was about 1,850 feet long. That's like lining up 6 American football fields end to end. And parts of it were over 128 feet tall.
But the how is the amazing part. It wasn't built with stone and brick over many years. The whole thing was designed to go up in months.
Which was unheard of.
Completely. It was the world's first large-scale example of prefabricated architecture. Everything, the iron columns, the wooden frames, the nearly 300,000 panes of glass, was made in a factory and just bolted together on site in Hyde Park.
Like the world's biggest, most incredible kit.
That's a perfect way to put it. And it went up in just 9 months, from the first drawing to the grand opening. The speed was part of the message.
And the effect inside must have been just stunning.
Oh, imagine it. For people used to fade dark, heavy stone buildings, walking into this hall that was just flooded with natural sunlight from all sides. It must have felt like stepping into the future, a cathedral of light.
It became a symbol of Victorian optimism right away.
It did. And you know, there's that great story about the trees?
The elm trees, right?
Yeah. When they were planning the site, they realized several huge old elm trees were right in the middle of where the building needed to be, and people did not want them cut down.
A bit of a PR problem.
A huge one. But Paxton's solution was just so simple and elegant. He just redesigned the central roof, making it a huge high-barrel vault that completely enclosed the living trees inside the glass hall.
So the trees were just inside the exhibition.
Yep. It shut down the protests and became one of the most popular attractions. It was this perfect symbol of how modern industry could work with nature, not just destroy it.
Okay, so the building is a marvel. Let's move inside. Because the thousands of inventions on display were the proof that the world was changing, and changing fast.
This is where you really see the leap forward. The first phase of the Industrial Revolution was mostly about textiles and basic steam power. This was different. This was about complex machinery, precision, communication.
And these weren't just static models sitting on a table.
No. They had massive steam engines, the kind that would power a factory or a giant ship. And they were running, hooked up to belts and gears. You could see and feel the power.
So for someone who came from a small town, maybe from a farm, seeing that must have been mind-blowing. It made the idea of industrial progress real.
Absolutely. You can imagine it inspiring a whole generation of kids to think about becoming engineers or scientists. It was an exciting vision of the future.
And among all the international displays, the American section really stood out.
It did, and not for the reasons you might think. Britain still dominated in heavy machinery. The American stuff was more focused on practical efficiency.
Like the new harvesting machine.
Exactly. A grain harvester that could do the work of many people in a fraction of the time. It pointed towards the future of large-scale, efficient farming.
But the real game changer from the U.S. was guns.
It sounds strange, but yes. It wasn't about the guns themselves, but how they were made. They displayed firearms built with easily replaceable parts.
Which we call interchangeable parts today.
Right. And this concept is so important. Before this, if a part on your gun broke, a skilled craftsman had to hand make a new one to fit that specific weapon.
The long, expensive process.
Very. The Americans showed they could mass-produce thousands of identical, perfect trigger mechanisms, barrels, everything. A part made in a factory could fix any gun, anywhere.
And that's the absolute foundation of modern manufacturing, isn't it?
It is. It's the birth of the assembly line. You don't need a master craftsman for every step. You can have a factory system. It changes everything about labor, cost, and scale. And European observers were just blown away by this idea.
And to top it all off, an American yacht won a big race during the exhibition, right?
It did. The yacht was called America, of course. It just added to their growing reputation as a rising industrial power.
Okay, beyond the machines, the exhibition was meant to be this huge cultural exchange.
That was Prince Albert's core vision. Half the space was reserved for displays from other countries and from across the British Empire.
So you could see fine porcelain from France.
And then walk over and see these beautiful, intricate silks and jewels from India. Or see raw materials like huge stacks of timber and bales of cotton from the U.S. and other colonies.
It was like taking a trip around the world without ever leaving London.
For the average person in 1851, who had probably never been more than 50 miles from home, it was exactly that. It was a direct, tangible connection to global trade.
And it wasn't just finished goods. They had these displays of raw materials that were attractions in themselves.
Oh yeah, they had giant blocks of coal, huge polished slabs of marble, things to show the raw wealth of the earth.
And then there was the star attraction, the Koh-i-Noor diamond.
The Great Mountain of Light. It was a recent acquisition for Queen Victoria, and it was displayed in this special, heavily guarded case. Huge crowds would line up just to get a quick look at this symbol of imperial power and wealth.
So you have jewels, raw materials, furs, even stuffed animals from all over the globe.
It was a very clear, very visual demonstration of the reach of the British Empire and the importance of international commerce to its power. It wasn't subtle.
What's really staggering, though, are the attendance numbers. I mean, travel was hard back then.
It was incredibly difficult. And yet, over 6 million people visited the exhibition in the 24 weeks it was open.
6 million. That's about a quarter of the entire population of the UK at the time.
It just shows you what a massive cultural event this was. And they made a real effort to make it accessible. Ticket prices were lowered on certain days to just 1 shilling, so working-class families could afford to come.
They even ran special trains from the countryside, right?
It did. Excursion trains, bringing in families who had never seen anything like it. Imagine their experience. You step off a long, dirty train ride and walk into this palace of glass filled with things like early cameras, folding furniture, just things from a future you couldn't have imagined.
And handling crowds that big meant they had to invent some new things on the logistics side, too.
They really pioneered modern public amenities for big events. And that includes something we take for granted today.
Toilet.
Public toilets. This was the first time clean, flushing public toilets were provided at a massive event.
And you had to pay, right?
You did. It cost 1 penny to use them. And it became so famous that the phrase, "to spend a penny," as the way of saying you need to use the restroom, that comes directly from the Great Exhibition.
That's incredible. And they also controlled the environment inside.
Very carefully. No alcohol was sold. Instead, you could get coffee, tea, simple snacks. There were big fountains with free, cool drinking water. The idea was to create a pleasant, orderly, civilized experience for everyone.
So when it all wrapped up, it was seen as a huge success.
A profound success, culturally, socially. Prince Albert's vision had been realized. But the really critical part is that it was also a massive financial success.
Which no one expected. The critics all predicted it would be a disaster that would lose a ton of money.
And instead made a huge profit, a surplus of about £186,000, which was an astronomical amount of money back then.
And Albert had a plan for that money.
He did. The government wanted to just absorb it. But Albert and the organizers fought for it. They argued that money made from celebrating science and industry should be reinvested right back into public education and science.
And he won that fight.
He did. He used that surplus to buy a huge piece of land in South Kensington in London.
An area that people now informally call Albertopolis.
Exactly. And on that land, they built the Science Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum, and the Natural History Museum. world-famous institutions that educate millions of people every year.
So their legacy is directly tied to the success of the exhibition.
Directly. The Great Exhibition literally paid for the cultural and scientific heart of London. It proved that peaceful international competition could drive progress, and it kicked off the tradition of World's Fairs that still happen today.
It really was a blueprint for the future, a symbol of Victorian optimism that actually delivered.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. The next time you see a picture of a dinosaur skeleton in the Natural History Museum in London, or an early steam engine in the Science Museum, just remember that the place you're looking at exists because of the profits and the ambition of a single temporary glass building that stood for just 6 months, 175 years ago.
Good luck with your studies.